Hey, what is up, guys? It is Rapmark here. A little late, but it is what it is. This has been a kind of crazy week for me. And yeah, a lot of things that I intended to do just weren't, and it is disappointing, but here we are. The review for Thor Love and Thunder. So, I'm literally going to start off. I was super excited for this film. I absolutely loved Thor Ragnarok. It was one of my favorite Marvel films, like hands down. I gave that one. I want to say I gave it a 10. I may have given it a 9. If I gave it a 9, that was not high enough. It deserved a 10. Um, so yeah, I don't know. This was so long ago. That was like 2017. So man, have I really been doing reviews that long? Wow. But anyway, um, like, and I love Taika Waititi. I love what he did with the whole turnaround of Thor from how serious he was in the first two to the just lightheartedness, the jokes. I mean, it was perfect. And so yeah, I was super excited for this to see sort of where it went. Some of the other things and let me just say I absolutely loved the performances in this. Christian Bale as Gore was amazing. Like it was insane. Like I don't think he can actually half-ass the role he does because he was acting like he was acting. Oh man, his acting was amazing. I enjoyed the chemistry between oh my gosh, what's her name? Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman. Oh my gosh, yes. So I enjoyed their chemistry. Um, and I liked how there were a lot of emotional beats with this because you know, there is something going on, which I'll get into in spoilers. Well, I mean, I can mention it here. Like this film literally covers things like the loss of loved ones. What is love? The death of gods. I mean, this is serious subject matter, and so that there comes in one of my complaints with this movie. Um, is essentially whenever you get emotionally invested in a scene, something happens that you're supposed to laugh at and you're amused, and it pulls you out of it. It pulled me out of it. And I know a lot of other people have made the same thing. Like I've read a lot of reviews and stuff on this, and yeah, it just seemed like they ramped the humor up to 11. And I know Taika Waititi does this. I mean, that's what he does. And it's not a and most of the time, like it really, really gets me. It like I totally like get that. I loved JoJo or yeah, the World War II film, which is now not coming to me. Oh my gosh. Uh, all right, this is gonna bug me. JoJo Rabbit, yes, JoJo Rabbit. I was right. Like I loved that film. I loved what was that video game one? This is yeah, this is crazy. What is it? It was Free Guy. There we go. Yeah, I love his humor and I love the stuff he does. So, and from what I read, he wanted to make this sort of a love story, and it kind of worked, but again, the problem is that you just can't get invested because then something happens to like there was only one scene where I got invested to the point where I actually like kind of started tearing up. And there were a few scenes, and most of these were with Thor and Jane, where I did start to get invested, and then something happened, and I was just like, just pulled out, and it was unfortunate. Um, so another thing I loved the music. I absolutely like Thor Ragnarok had some of the greatest music like ever. And this one like had lots of Guns N' Roses. Uh, yeah, it had a lot of Guns N' Roses. And I absolutely loved how we went from like late 70s for Ragnarok to 80s in this. I did enjoy that, and I thought it did add a lot to the pacing of it. The problem, so another problem in terms of pacing is, well, in terms of a lot of issues. There were a lot of characters that I felt were cut short. Like I don't feel that Gore got a whole lot. Like it just feels like he's a main character only in the last act of the movie. Like that's it, and it's really sad. He's Gore the God Slayer. You don't see him slay any gods. You just see the dead body of gods that he's killed. Uh, and from what I've read, there's like 2 hours worth of footage that they could have made a movie, could have put into the movie that was just cut. Like this movie, what is the runtime of this movie? This is less than 2 hours. This is like an hour and 59 minutes. So yeah, 119 minutes. This is less than 2 hours. And it completely feels that way. I mean, there's it feels like a lot is missing from Gore. Uh, Valkyrie just seemed like a side character who they did talk about, addressing her bisexuality. They barely glossed over it. It was there, but it was really light. And again, like there's a whole like City of God scene, which essentially was acted as an excuse to for her to get a better weapon other than a sword, and that's it. And I mean, it kind of does establish, how detached and how little the gods care about everyone, including themselves. Um, but I mean, this was a 25 minute scene. It did not need to be that long. I'm sorry. Like it was funny, and I liked a lot of stuff in there. There was a lot of cool stuff, like Game of Thrones sort of thing with one of the gods. Let's see, there was Korg, his god, sitting on a throne of scissors because Rock beats scissors. That was like again, these are the sort of things that I love about Taika Waititi. He does do funny, but and I'm not sure if this was as much his decision or like the suits in terms of how long it was. Like I know the comedy was definitely his decision, and honestly, I think it was a bit too much if he was going for this to be a romance because it did not really hit that. There was just too much. tonal inconsistency for it to be a full blown romance. But I did like the emotion. But no, like I love his humor. But again, like so much was cut out. So I wonder if there was more to her bisexuality that was addressed in that scene that was just cut out. I mean, and then there apparently Jeff Goldblum and Peter Dinklage would have they filmed for this project. Like they are actually on film, and their scenes were cut. And so was Lena Headey, of Cersei Lannister renowned. She was set to appear. Her scenes were removed as well. Like there is so much cut, and Korg, like he doesn't really play that much of a character really. Like he is reduced to the point of just being a narrator essentially. And oh my gosh. So, and again, like, well, there are some good scenes with gore. There's a scene with the Asgardian children, which is super creepy, super great. I love his acting in the very beginning of it. And the fight was pretty cool. So now his weapon, uh, the Necro Sword. So in the comics, this is set up very differently. So the Necro Sword essentially was made by like the symbiote god at some point, and it is not tied into that at all. Um, it deals with shadows more. You go into the shadow realm and there's shadow monsters, and the problem with that is not so much the shadow realm itself, but with shadow monsters, again, you're not really seeing too much, and they don't really convey that much of a threat. It's Yeah, it's a little off. I did like the scene where they're in the shadow realm, and there's no color. Like it looks super. That looks super cool. So I did like that. But yeah, and so Sif also makes an appearance in here, and that's another thing. Like she is barely in here. She is there literally to give a brief exposition dump, and then she appears again in a mid credit scene, or not a mid credit scene, but like at the end. And it's just like, what was even the point of that? What was the point of having her back? Like it just felt like so much was cut. And looking back, yeah, there was about 2 hours cut to this film. Like again, they could have added. This is less than a 2 hour long film. They could have added at least a half hour of like more gore stuff. You know, because we'll get into that in a bit. Because that would have been sick. Let alone like all the other stuff from all the actors they asked to return, who people would have loved to have seen, and they were cut. Like, what a waste of time. It was impossible to get into Australia, where I think a majority of this film was filmed. And this was during the pandemic, so I mean there was traveling involved, and like just to I don't know, it seemed like a waste of time. And then there were some things that were included which I'm just like, wait, what? I'm not like there is a choice at the end that Thor makes, which I'm not exactly thrilled to see these movies continue on with. It just seems a little weird, and I don't know. Like ultimately, I got the thing. I got the feeling that this was a movie that was largely made for kids, which I mean, I get it. That's what Marvel is for. But this is like 10-year-old kids, and it's just like it just felt way off the rails. Like we went to crazy town on some of the writing here, and the editing just sort of ruined the pacing and ruined a lot of characters and down their dump time. I really wonder what decision was made to have 4 hours of footage reduced to less than 2 hours. Like that just seems ridiculous because you see so many storylines that are just like half baked and missing like important parts. Like in the big thing with Jane, her having cancer. And that does happen in the comics. So I mean, I knew that was going to happen, but I mean, it it feels like it just comes out of nowhere, and it's not, and everything is just sort of quickly glossed over. Um, and then it sort of does a whole expo dump of how they broke up, why it's been 8 years uh, since she's been involved. So yeah. So ultimately, I do think this is a mixed bag. The performances are what carries it up. The soundtrack I absolutely loved, and I did like a lot of the humor, but I felt that it was just too much at times. And there was some running jokes that just got carried way too far. Like Stormbreaker. It, I thought it was funny like 2, 3 times in. It happens like 5 times though, and it's just like, come on, stop. With So, I mean, I did like it. Like the first couple times, I was just like, that's funny. Like an inanimate object is being funny. But there were some points where they took it a little too far, and it was just like, come on. And then another one was the screaming goats. Uh, that was funny when they were first introduced. It was also funny when they run into something, toward the end of the movie. And besides that, it's just like they just came in at awkward times and at sometimes serious times, and it broke the mood. Like it's just like, please stop. I get it. uh yeah, so that was carried a bit too far. So moving into the final battle, like I liked the final battle with between Gore and Thor. The problem is it lasted all of 5 minutes, and it was the very end, and it led to another thing which was super cringe, which I'll get into in spoilers. So uh, I'm gonna go into my final verdict at this point. I've talked plenty about this. Uh, oh my gosh! But I will say, Russell Crowe as Zeus, he stole this show whenever he was on screen. He was amazing, and I absolutely loved him. So that was my last thing for that. Um, so honestly, I would give this a 7. Because again, there was just so much just tonal inconsistency here. It was just too much. And he said he wanted this written like they'd let a bunch of 10-year-olds write the script and listen to everything they said, and it's just like, don't do that. It's too much. It went out onto crazy town, and unfortunately, it's to the detriment of this movie because some of the humor just isn't as funny as I think they thought it would be, and they again some of the running jokes just were got old real fast. Like the humor was just way over the top, and it destroyed some of the emotional beats. Like I felt this movie needed to be more emotional, but you couldn't really get invested because it felt like it didn't want the audience not laughing for 2 minutes, and so it was just too much. It was too much, but I do appreciate the lighthearted nature. I did think it was a good story, even though some bits seemed cut short. They were cut short, as I explained. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot I loved about this movie. And again, because I love the comic book shit, and like I I'm being really I'm being really generous. Not really generous. Like I do think it deserves a 7. It should be seen. You should see this movie. It is a good movie to see. It is a little different, and you might find some of the humor grating because it's just everywhere, and it just prevents you from really getting emotionally invested in a lot of parts in this movie. So I think that is it for this section. So I will be back for spoilers here in a minute. So I will catch you guys next time. See ya.